Here we are. It is Friday, March 7th, 2025, and this is the weekly video. We do these every Friday, talk about the auction market, things that have sold. We cover a bit on antique Chinese art, Japanese art, Korean art, and occasionally, as I've said before, we go into carpets and textiles, and sometimes a little bit on American furniture and so forth. And today we're going to talk about a couple of things. It's going to be a little shorter than the regular video. As you know, we're just getting back from our trip this past week, and I was pretty run down by the time we got home, and took a day or so to relax. But we did record the video you saw yesterday of the sale that took place at New England Auction Gallery, Fred Giampitro's place, for the Mark Matz sale. It did very well, and I'm going to go through some of that in some detail and talk about some of the lots. I did the video yesterday. Just showed some clips and excerpts of the results to get a feeling for it. He's got a couple of very good auctioneers. I enjoyed hearing them very much. They did a good job. They're good auctioneers. So it's a good company to have in your quiver. There's some good auction houses around. This is something that doesn't get discussed a whole lot. There's some very good regional auction houses that do as good a job as the big New York and London auction houses do. And there's some very good auction houses that are on the mid-range scale that are also over in Europe, in England and so forth, that are quite excellent. And you don't need to put into a major auction house to get extremely good results anymore. Those days are over. And I think everybody sort of knows that in the business. And at some point, I'm going to put together a list of some of the auction houses that I would recommend to you if you were going to sell things that are scattered up and down, primarily on the East Coast of the United States. There's a couple out in California that are pretty good too, but I think the bulk of them are clearly in the Eastern United States. There's one in the Midwest, which is Heineman's in Chicago. I think they do a good job, and they're tied into Freeman's now. But we'll get into that in another video. But on this one, I want to talk a little bit about some sales that have a couple of sales that are coming up that'll be updated on the global pages by tomorrow, probably midday tomorrow. I've got a couple of things to do here in the morning with the website, get it back in order, and we'll restart the inquiry program. We'll restart over the weekend. We'll get that squared away so people can send things in, because I've heard from a bunch of people asking me when I'm going to do it, and we had it shut down while I was away because I needed to take some time off and enjoy myself with my wife and so forth, and work on a tan and do all that fun stuff. So, but anyway, we're back. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is this sale that's coming up at in San Jose, California. This is Yosemite Auctions. In the past, they've sold copies, and they sell whatever comes to them. But they got this in. This is pretty good. This is a 35 centimeter, or roughly 14 and a half, 15-inch tall Wan Li Mei Ping base with a dragon on it. It's very reminiscent in style to some of the Jiajing dragons that you see. It's nicely done. And I looked at this thing pretty carefully, and there's nothing in it that on it, the decoration, the color of the cobalt, that makes me think it's a recent copy or anything. There's the bottom of it. It looks fine from what I can see. It does not appear to be a reproduction. It's nicely potted. It's got a very reasonable estimate of $800 to $1,600. I think it'll go well beyond that. But if you're a Wan Li buyer, it's a good thing to look at. So check that out. That sale is on March 11th. All right. And then there is this is coming up at Stair. It's got another sale coming up with some good things in it. And one of them is this, a very nice pair of large Japanese Amari baluster vases with covers. These are 20 inches tall. These are big jars. And they appear to be in very nice condition. From what I'm seeing, the gilding all looks quite good. Always check the gilding first, because that's the first to go when the vases are exposed to wear in life, or if somebody tries to clean them with ammonia. And they appear to be Edo period. They're the bottoms of them, 18th, early 19th century examples, best as I can tell from the pictures. And the estimate is very modest, $500 to $700 for the pair. That's a very low estimate. These should bring $2,000 or $3,000 pretty comfortably, I would think. But they're worth bookmarking and throwing a bid on to just take a shot at it. They came from it came from an apartment in New York designed by Colfax and Fowler. So a fancy interior decorator picked them for a job. Nice looking jars. And then there is is this. This is a set of 3 Chinese export watercolors in various occupational pursuits. Here he is with a rack heating it up to dry. Sometimes they dry paper on these. And there's another one here. It looks like he's cutting up. What is this? It looks like he's cutting up some sort of maybe a goat or something, or a lamb. I see a hoof sticking up there. He's a butcher, obviously, a street peddler selling some meat. And then you have somebody here boiling down. I'm not sure what he's making. He might be boiling down. I don't know. He's making soap or something. I'm not sure what he's making. If you looked around a little, you could probably find out. But certainly a very industrial. You see the wood lined up to go in, and there's the boiler up top. So I'm not quite sure what he's doing. I don't think he's cooking noodles. At any rate, the whole lot's estimated at $700-900. Looks like a pretty good set of pictures to me, and I think the estimate is reasonable, and so forth. And then there's this. This is very nice. This is a transitional period sale. This jar. This is coming up at Rob Michaels. It's got a sale coming up on the 26th of March. We're going to have this on the global pages by tomorrow. We'll go through it and pluck out the pieces we like a lot. And there's this, a very nice looking jar. It's either late Ming or transitional. There's always a debate about this shape of jar, which it is, whether it's transitional Wan Li, but it's clearly a early to mid 17th century pot. Very nicely done, and it measures 34 centimeters, or about 13 or 14 inches in height. Estimated at 4,000 to 6,000 euros, 4,000 to 8,000 euros rather, with a 3,200 euro opening bid. It's already got 7 bidders watching it. And it'll get more as it goes along. And then hopping along over to this. Oh, this. This was something that was in a sale, and we're going to get to some results here. This was in Fred Giampitro's sale yesterday. This was yesterday's sale. He had 2 days of sales. He had the Mark Matz sale, then he had sort of a general sale, some very nice things the next day. And he had this. And this was something I picked up. And the reason is this is not a Chinese vase. And some of you are sitting here looking at it saying, yeah, it's Japanese. It's Japanese Amari. Very nice example. It appears to be 18th century. Nice reticulated body, 8 inches tall. And it was sold on a single bid, $200. And I left more than that. So it was a very, very good buy. And of course, the issue with these is that if it's listed as Chinese, people that buy Chinese are going to look at it and say, no, it's Japanese. And people that search for Japanese things may not come across it. Because they search for Japanese things, and Japanese, this is not going to turn up in a search, obviously, for Japanese pieces. So this was a very, very nice buy. I was extremely pleased. The reticulated bodies on 18th century Amari are pretty rare. You don't see them all that often, and this is a double-walled example. So I was very pleased to acquire that. And then hopping along over to this was that very nice grisaille decorated charger. The important thing to remember about this is that this pattern is most often seen in 8 and 9 inch plates. This is a 15-inch plate. This is a big piece of porcelain. Very big for one of these. Extremely unusual to see gilt and grisaille work of European scenes of a European wedding in extraordinary detail. In that size, 15 inches. For every 100 plates, or 100, maybe 150 plates that you'll see in similar types of patterns that are 8 or 9 inches, you'll have one that's 15 inches. And the 8 or 9 inch plates generally sell for, $500 to $800, $900, depending on the subject matter. So I think this was an exceptional buy. It had some minor condition issues. I don't care. This was a rare bird, and it brought 2,400, which is not unreasonable, including the buyer's premium. It was probably around 3,000 for it, but very big, very, very big and attractive. All right, and then hopping along over to the rest of the sale from yesterday, there's some lots I want to go through just to check them out and go over the prices with everybody. We had talked about this in the sale. They're in the sale prior. I thought it was a stupendously attractive piece of furniture. It was an Anglo-Indian market with ebonized details on it, all beautifully carved. This was such a wonderful piece of furniture. The wood selection was amazing on this. Absolutely beautiful. This fabulous sort of striated satin wood with ebony around it, framing the piece. Really, really stood out. I think this was a great buy. I think this was an absolutely great buy. And the premium, it ended up at about $3,100. You couldn't, if you went into a good store, if you went to a cabinet maker and said, make me this, he'd charge you $30,000 for it or more in this quality, because of the carving on it would take forever to do, and then finish it. Just absolutely great deal. Beautiful piece of furniture. And then hopping along over to this was that very, very pretty Bencharong bowl. This was a large bowl. It looks sort of visually like, well, it's a 7 or 8 inch bowl, 6 inch bowl. No, this is a 9 inch bowl. This was a big piece of porcelain in a Bencharong school of work. It has a very strong Indian look to it. They're calling it Bencharong and Lai Nam Thong porcelain bowl. Yeah, but there's a lot of Indian market influence on this. If you look at the decoration and you think about Indian inlaid work and Indian decorative work of the 19th and 18th century, very, very similar. This is an awful pretty bowl, very, very pretty, and it sold for $1,500, well deserved, and another 400 or 500 for the buyer's premium, but very, very attractive. And then hopping along over to this, my pages are loading very slowly. I'm not sure what the deal is here. All right, is this the Bencharong mid-drip candlesticks? We had talked about these because these are very rare. You don't see Bencharong candlesticks very often, and these look to be in quite good shape. If you saw them, let me know what kind of condition they were in. But they look to be in beautiful condition, and these mid-drips weren't made hardly ever in this pattern. As I said a couple of weeks ago, I think I'd seen one other pair of them at some point in some collection. Maybe was it in Thailand or something. It was one of the books published, but it's a very, very rare pair of sticks. And in the end, they ended up bringing about $9,000 with the buyer's premium because they're rare, because they're just so rare, and very, very pretty. And how tall were they? They were good sizes, I remember. They were about 9 inches tall, 10 inches tall. So they're a nice size, nice tabletop size, but very, very pretty and unusual. All right, this was the Bencharong snuff bottle that we talked about. I like this a lot. I thought this was very, very nice and beautifully done and very rare. And you don't see these very often. I think I've seen one other of these in this manner in the last 20 years. Very, very unusual. You're not going to find them in a lot of snuff bottle books, but very, very. If you're a snuff bottle buyer, I hope you bought it. I'll just put it that way. It sold, I think, fairly reasonably. I don't think $1,000 for this plus the premium was an unreasonable amount. So $1,300 or $1,400 for a very, very rare type of snuff bottle. I think it was quite excellent. Okay. So next, I just changed some things around here because the pages are loading very slowly. I've got to make some adjustments on the computer. It might have gotten bumped in travel or something. I don't know. But anyway, I wanted to talk about these two paintings. This is sort of an interesting exercise. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about these China trade ship paintings, the Miriam, this was the boat from Maine that had a very short life. It only went out to sea in 1879 and it sank around 1881. It was a very short life, but it was a well-known ship for its day. And we talked a few weeks ago about what it would bring. And ships with American flags on them bring more money, considerably more money typically than ships with European flags on them. It's just the way it is. If you have a Hong scene with a bunch of ships in it, if one of them has an American flag on it, and better yet, if it has an American flag on it, you can see the American Hong in the background with the flagpole, that picture is going to be worth a lot more money typically than a Hong scene without the American flags in it. Because American flag paintings are fairly rare and just very desirable to American collectors. And this was a classic case of this situation. Here you have one that was estimated at $2,000 to $4,000, sold for $7,000 plus the premium. That's about $9,000. All right. And then you look at the next ship painting, very similar in style. It's actually technically it's probably a better painting. Because of the way the rigging is done. The rigging on this boat is quite meticulous. They were both done at around the same time, but this is of a Hamburg, Germany ship. All right, and this is how it looks. All right, now they didn't have the name of the ship as far as I know, but the quality of the work on it was very, very good, extremely fine. And what did it sell for? Not American. Sold for $1,600 plus the premium. So with the premium, it ended up at around $2,200 or so. This ended up at over $9,000. So it's a 300% difference in price. And it's important to know this if you're at an auction sometime and they have some China trade paintings and nobody's paying a lot of attention to the flags. You pay attention to the flags. And if you find one with an American flag on it, you know it's going to be a more desirable picture, especially if you're a dealer looking to resell it. And that's the one you want to go after if you can. All right. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was this sort of nifty painting by Tim Kwa on this mount. This was a very nice example. It sold for $3,200 plus premium, or around 3,800, I guess, roughly. Very finely done with a sampan near a bridge, and this nice sort of tranquil scene, quiet day of trade in a little village. Very, very pleasing scene, very classic. And this is the kind of scene that in the West, this was done probably as an export painting. This is the kind of thing that was of great interest to people in the West and America and Europe, because they wanted to see what life was like in China. So every time there was a picture available of daily life in China, Westerners were fascinated by it. They were fascinated to see how they built houses, how they dressed, what the rivers looked like, the waterways looked like, and so forth, how the boats were done, and so forth. So it was of enormous interest culturally. And this painting was done probably about 1840, if you want to get an accurate sort of estimated date on it. All right. And then coming down here, this is the painting by Spoilum. And Spoilum is one of the great China trade painters. He's probably the most famous portrait painter in China during the 18th century. He died early 19th century, very early. And this was one of his pictures. It was estimated at 10 to 20,000, and it was let's see, do they say who it was, or do they just say East Indian Company sea captain? That's all they say. Classic portrait by Spoilum, considered to be the most significant Chinese portrait artist of later years in the 18th century, known for his portraits of American and British ship captains in Canton. And he was a famous portrait artist. This picture was 17 by 13 inches in height. Very, very well done, classically painted, beautiful uniform, and it did well. Obviously, it sold for $38,000 plus premium, or around $46,000, all said and done. But a very handsome picture, very, very handsome. And then the next one over was this. Now, this painting, I don't know what happened, but if you saw the recording yesterday where they showed the auctioneer, and behind him hanging was this picture, and I think they over sharpened this picture or something, because I saw the other images of it, and it's really not quite this crisp. Has a much more atmospheric feeling to it, and I think they might have over sharpened it or something in the photography. But this was a very attractive picture. It's been relined. This is when they reline pictures, they put these on here. This is really to preserve the painting, to keep it from moving, to keep the canvas from shifting, to keep the stretchers from moving. It's just sort of an insurance policy. So it's not something negative about the artwork. And this was a very classic Lamqua painting of a Chinese merchant, and it did very, very well. It brought 28,000 plus the premium, or about $34,000 roughly, somewhere in there. But an awfully nice picture, a terribly nice picture, beautifully done, very casual scene. And he's got a great face too. It always helps when somebody's got a great face in a painting. All right, and then rolling down the page a little further, we're going to get into these pictures here. These are some of the these gouaches on paper, and I'm not sure these. No, these weren't done on Whatman paper, but this was an extremely attractive China trade portrait, and as the auctioneer said at the time, very crisp colors, and she was absolutely correct. The colors are very crisp, very vibrant, and they're full color. The blues are very, very nice. The yellows still look good. They haven't faded from sunlight. Obviously, this picture's been taken well care of for a long time. The boy is carrying this very attractive sort of 18th, early 19th century cinnabar lacquer box, and they're drinking out of these little cups with the cup stands in enamel. And sometimes they're in porcelain too. And they're sitting there together having a nice time of it. Very, very good life. And it sold for $2,000 plus the premium, or about $2,400 or $2,600 roughly. But still, I don't think that was unreasonable at all. And then these paintings. Now, these paintings had sort of strong estimates on them, and I'm not sure quite sure why, because none of the items in the sale appear to have reserves on them. I don't think I think this was a white glove sale. I think everything sold. I didn't see any past lots. I went through the listings today. So I think what they did was they went with fairly strong estimates, but very, very light to non-existent reserves. And so you had these, and these were very nice paintings. And typically in the past, we've been seeing these sell, and they sell for anywhere from $300, $350 up to $600 a piece, somewhere around there. But $400, $450, $500 is sort of the range that you expect to see them. Now, these were very, very nice examples. These were exceptionally nice examples, and beautifully done. And these were on Whatman paper. imported English paper that the China trade painters loved so much because it held the gouache so well. And down at the bottom, watermark, J. Watman and Company. So if you take these out of the frames and typically you look down on the lower right, put some light up to it, and you'll see the Watman oval in there, the stamp for Watman. All right, and these sold for $900 plus the premium, or around $1,200 roughly, or $600 a piece. So they did well. They're very good paintings. I'm not critical of the paintings at all. I think they're beautiful, but they may have been slightly overestimated for whatever reason. And then you have this. This was the most expensive of the three lots, the furniture design. Here you have it. These are very, very nice. There's three of the paintings in here. I'm going to close these up first. Okay, there we go. Designed for furniture and objects, and this is one with a sort of a Junyao vase on it, and then this tree, sort of like a bonsai, but not, with a scholar's rock on it. And then you have a stand with a melon on it, and these very nice stands, this beautiful table, very aesthetically, very, very attractive. And these kinds of pictures don't turn up very often. This is a pretty rare type of picture. They're rarer than the scenes we were just looking at of the woman standing with the child and that sort of thing. Those turn up fairly often, relatively speaking. These kinds of pictures don't. And as I recall in the listing, they mentioned that there's similar examples in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and their collection. This one did fine. It brought $1,500 plus the premium, or around about $2,200 or so, roughly. 2,100 all said and done, but absolutely wonderful. It was a good sized picture, 14 by 19 inches. So, on a wall, it's got to have a good presence to it aesthetically. It's going to be very noticeable, good looking. All right. And as you can see, there were several others. And then as we scroll down here through the sale, we come to this. This was that fantastic pair of paintings of butterflies by Yu Kwa. I loved these. I left a bid on them. I didn't leave a huge bid. I think I left $700 or something on them. I knew I wouldn't get them. These are very, very rare. Now, pith paintings, as you know, come from the pith tree. That's actually a slice of the tree itself that they're able to paint on it. They can slice it successfully, nice and thin. And there's a lot of pith paintings. So they come in a huge range of qualities, from sort of very commercial, small things of simple figures and not a lot of detail in them, that were bought by people visiting. Sailors would bring them home in little books and so forth. But at the Yu Kwa studio, they did meticulous painting. He's one of the most famous Hong painters, or Canton painters there was. And they did this kind of work. And if you pull these in, the details are so exceptional. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, they almost look three-dimensional. They look like real insects laying on butterflies and dragonflies and so forth, and beetles laying on paper. Just amazing quality. And I hope one of you bought them. I really do. These are absolutely fantastic pictures, and beautifully done, nicely framed, ready to hang. There's not much else to say. They sold for 14 plus premium, or around, bring them up to about $1,800, I guess, roughly $900 a piece. Very, very reasonable price. The sort of typical ones, the more average types that you see, not the low end, but the sort of in the mid range, they typically sell for somewhere these days between $150 and $300, in that range, typically. But these were head and shoulders above the typical pith paintings that you're going to find in the market today. And they don't turn up. The good ones like this don't turn up very often anymore. All right, and then rolling down the page a little bit further, we had this, the side wheeler, the lacquer side wheeler. Hold on a second. There we go. A very rare thing. This is a China trade example, and they're calling it an incense burner. I swore I thought it was a tea caddy way it was done, but they say no, it's an incense burner. Any rate, there it is. And one of these did turn up a few years ago that had some minor losses to it, but also a very rare one. And we talked about it on the channel. I don't remember how long ago. Maybe it was 3 years ago at this point. And here's another one, but this is a better one actually, because it's in better condition. The condition on this looked to be quite exceptional. From end to end. It still had its tin liners, the gilding on top here, even though it's a horizontal surface, which tends to get dirty and require quite a bit of wiping from time to time. This one didn't have any of those problems. Looked like it had some sort of little repair in here. The smokestack had to be reattached or something. But overall, it's a very unusual form, obviously. And it ended up selling with the premium for about $7,000, $7,100 roughly, somewhere in there, which was right smack in the middle of the estimate, pretty much. So the estimate was $4,000 to $8,000, but an absolute great thing. And it was fairly good size, 20 inches long. It was a pretty big piece. All right. And this was one of the mysteries of the sale. Why it didn't do better, I have no idea. and maybe I'll get a hold of the auction house and ask them what was wrong with this. This should have sold instantly for $5,000 or $6,000. This is a very, very rare Paduke wood cylinder desks. You see this more traditional bureaus from China trade. There was a traditional one in the sale. A nice looking one, 4 graduated drawers with pack-tong handles and all that stuff on it. That sold for about $6,500, $7,000. It's nowhere near as rare as this, not even close. And for every 10 chests of drawers, you're going to see, like the one that's coming up, chest form, you're going to see. No, you're not even going to see one cylinder desk in that many. You're going to have to maybe go through 20 or 30 pieces to find one. Cylinder desks are highly rare, very rare. They were an English market thing, but beautifully done. And this had silver mounts on it done by Komshing, a well-known silversmith. They're signed, each of them, apparently all of the hardware is signed. This was a real rarity. I was stunned when it sold for what it sold for. I have no idea why. Sold for $2,600 plus premium, or around $3,400. This was an absolute steal. This was a great buy, great buy. That's why it pays to pay attention to auctions. If they were closer, I probably would have thrown a bid on it, but I don't feel like driving to Connecticut right now. I'm tired of travel. And here's that. Remember the tea caddy that had the scenes on it depicting working with tea, drying tea and hauling tea. So it's a tea caddy, and the storyboard on the outside of it is about tea, about processing and handling tea. And it was a very, very fine box. This box was in very, very good condition, pretty much all the way around. I couldn't find anything really, there's nothing wrong with this. There's not even wear on the bottom of it. It's in beautiful condition. This was a 19th century box, and it got a lot of attention, justifiably so. They dated it to about 1840. I can't quibble with that. And it sold for $1,700 plus premium, or around $2,200. This was a very good buy. This was a wonderful, rare tea caddy if you're a China trade collector, because tea, of course, was one of the great symbols of China. That was what they were known for. It changed England. Lord knows. It was the American Revolution, the tea chests in the harbor, all of that. Tea was a big deal in the 18th and 19th century in particular. And this was a very interestingly and well done box. Liked it a lot. Really, really liked it. And then popping along down to this, that very ornate ebonized chair. I like this a lot. I thought this was wonderful. And as they mentioned, I think they said, was it the Forbes family? Copter Robert Bennett Forbes, in the Greek Revival house he has in Milton, has some in this style in the house as well. A very, very high-end, elegant, beautifully carved, exceptional piece of furniture. Well, the estimate was more than reasonable for what it is. But if you looked at this chair in any detail, it was so fresh in such beautiful condition. It was almost mind-boggling, especially up here at the top. No wear anywhere. No wear on it at all. It was in beautiful shape. And sold for $4,000 plus the premium, or around about $5,500 or so dollars. But very, very attractive all the way around. And then right after that came this, the Rakami, the settee. This is a caned example, Chinese export ware, first quarter of the 19th century. It looked like it had been probably refinished at one point. That's fine. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. Very, very, very pretty. Nicely carved. They did federal furniture, actually some federal pieces of furniture that were not too dissimilar from this. And it ended up doing just fine. It was estimated at just $2,000 to $4,000, and it took off, and it sold for about $14,000 or $15,000 with the buyer's premium, done about 1820. Extremely unusual type of furniture. You don't see them very often. And somebody got it. Somebody got a good piece of furniture. And there were a number of other pieces of good Chinese export furniture in here. There was a very nice hardwood chest. There was this unusual tambour side table that you would go in a bedroom, a little dressing stand and so forth. And there were a lot of interesting things. And then you come down to this. This did really well. This was the Chinese export with the Islamic markings on it, 18th century, and it was apparently it came from the collection of the Motoheda family. And those who have been collecting and know about Chinese export wares, the Motohedas, of course, started the famous porcelain factory themselves. Many of the pieces they had reproduced were based on their own collection. They had one of the most advanced collections in the world is very much in private hands, which was quite amazing, of some of the rarest pieces of China trade porcelain in existence. And this was something that they had, and it was in very nice condition. You don't see any wear or rubbing to the red enamels. I don't see any damage to it. It's got a very nice creamy white glaze, very attractive. It measured about 8 inches in diameter, as I recall. Yeah, 8 inches in diameter, and sold for 13,000 with the buyer's premium, basically. So there you go. Very well over its estimate. The estimate was just 1,500 to 3,000. And I thought it certainly would get there, and it went way beyond it. Then coming down, hopping onto the next page. I'm doing them one at a time because I don't want to make everybody sit while the browser's reloading. These are those spectacular. There were two of these in the sale. This was the one that brought the most money. I think what did the other one bring? 6,000. 5,500 plus premium, about 7,000. This one brought about 9,000. And they were both excellent. It would be very hard to decide which one was better box. They're both done during the Qin period. There's similar examples in St. Petersburg, in Russia, in their collection. And this is just a stupendously fine piece of Chinese filigree. When you look at this and you realize this is the kind of work they could do. And there weren't many silversmiths in the West that could do this. This is just the best of the best of the best in the way of work, perfectly done all the way around. And it ended up bringing 7,000 plus the buyer's premium. And it wasn't a terribly big box. It was 3 by 6 inches. So it was, about this big, but very attractive, extremely attractive box. And then hopping along, hold on a second. Just getting rid of some windows here. So it ended up stalling the poor laptop. We get down here. Oh, yeah, the Japanese things that we get into. These were some good buys. The Japanese knife box did quite well. It brought $1,900, a very, very nice looking piece of Japanese lacquerware. Edo period, probably 1800 to 1840, but nicely done. I commented on this a couple of weeks ago. I love the form. It's a Western form that's been reinterpreted and reimagined by the Japanese lacquer workers and carvers. And this was a very, very attractive thing. And so with the premium, it ended up at about $2,500, $2,600, but awfully nice, not an overpayment. And then the other ones on here, I was surprised these didn't bring more. This is a very nice traveling box. Japanese Edo period, first quarter of the 19th century. This is a beautiful piece of lacquer with mother of pearl inlay, these flying pheasants and everything else. Very nice box with a looks like a European figure on the top of it, maybe taken from a print source of some kind. Any rate, very, very nice. There's the interior, beautiful box. And somebody picked this up for $200 plus the buyer's premium. Now that's why I always say, just leave a bid. Look at the estimate, $1,000 to $2,000. And sometimes this is what can happen if they get a very aggressive. That's a fairly aggressive estimate for this, but not crazy actually. But an estimate like that makes people think, well, the reserve is probably 900. I'd pay 500 or 600, but I'm not going to pay 900, so they don't bid on it. And this sold for it opened at $200. And it closed at $200. So single bid. That was a great buy. That was a very, very good buy. And there were several other boxes in the sale as well. There was this black lacquer example here that went for $150 with a $500 to $1,000 estimate, and this one sold for $350 with a $1,000 to $2,000 estimate. Again, always leave a bid. Always leave bids. That's how I got the little vase yesterday. I just left a bid on it. And then you come down here, there's some very nice Anglo-Indian pieces in here. They had some rather good paintings and so forth. They had this very nice picture of a peacock. And then you had these very good-looking chairs. I think the chairs went very reasonably. This set of 4 rosewood and rattan armchairs, China trade, they were estimated at $2,500 to $5,000, which I didn't think was unreasonable at all, because in the past we routinely see single chairs like this. And there were several in the sale that brought $1,200 a piece, $1,300 a piece. Well, here's 4. Beautifully done. And with the buyer's premium, they went for about $500 a piece. All right, that's a heck of a deal. Not even $500 a piece, $450 a piece. If you go to a furniture store, you can't buy a good-looking chair for $450. Nothing that looks as good as these. These are absolutely wonderful. Beautiful lines, nice backs on them, and they look very serviceable, ready to go. Just take them home and use them. All right. You can use antique chairs. Somebody said to me, "Can you use antique?" Yeah, absolutely. Many antique chairs, as long as they're well built, give them a looking over. Maybe have your cabinet guy or a carpenter or somebody knows something about woodworking. Take a look at them. Make sure that all the pins and everything are good and strong. But if they're in good condition, antique chairs are great to use. Our dining room is all antique chairs. Nobody's ever broken one yet. All right. And then coming over here, we have some of the Indian things. There was this very attractive Indo-Persian Kalamkari block print. I mentioned a few weeks ago when I first went into the business, these were fairly commonly found. And it would be just a cloth, and sometimes they were backings added to them. And they would turn up in little antique shops and trunks and so forth. They'd often get thrown in, as they'd call them paisleys. Yeah, actually, they weren't paisleys. These were block printed, but they call them paisleys, and they'd throw them in the textile bin. So it was always a good idea to check the textile bin in old antique shops, because you come across a piece like this. And a thing like this back in the 70s and 80s, $20. And it was a beautiful piece of art. I bought a number. I bought every one of them that I could find, because I could sell them. You could sell them in London for more money, send them over to people there. But these were very, very nice. This was a very, very nice one. It did fine in the end. It brought 900 plus the premium, or around $1,200. So it did just great. And then there were there's some very nice looking boxes. One of the rarest things in the sale, and I was kind of surprised that it didn't bring more money. Nobody picked up on it. Was this a Dutch colonial calamander wood book-shaped Bible box? This is a very rare thing. And the calamander wood on it is you see Anglo-Indian boxes often made of calamander wood. It's got these black lines sort of racing through it, very sort of dramatic looking wood. And this is a Bible box made of the stuff. There it is. That's more typical of what you expect to see in calamander wood, that look like this. But this one had a serpentine front. It was in wonderful shape. I didn't know why it didn't do better, but it went for just $700. If it sold for $2,500, I wouldn't have been terribly surprised. It's a beautiful looking thing, and 700 plus premium, so around $1,000 roughly, somewhere in there. All right. And then heading down here, we get into some of the Bencharong pieces that we've already discussed. And the Bencharong wares did fine across the board. Some of the blue and white pieces did quite well, as you can see. And then they had Thai and Siamese silver. And it brought in the ranges that you would expect to see. And there were a couple of Buddha heads thrown in. And on and on and on. Very, very interesting sale. But overall, I have to say the sale was, I think, very successful. Good thing it was good to see, because you had good China trade pieces doing very well. You had some China trade furniture that did well. You had one bargain, but you had a number of pieces that did quite well for what, considering how they've been doing in the last 10 or 15, 20 years. There seemed to be some real interest in them. Now, this auction was in New England, so you're going to attract a lot of people that knew Mark Matz and knew about the quality of things that he sells. I don't think he's dead or anything. He's just getting rid of his collection. But people that dealt with him for years, know his taste, and that goes a long way. And one of the things I wanted to mention, rather interesting, I'm going to cover it. There's another sale. When I was looking at the New England Auctions website the other day, I noticed they're doing the sale of a dealer that I liked a great deal. Another great guy. His name was Richard Kazarian. And he didn't deal in Asian stuff in particular, but he was a Brown University professor in English literature or something. And he got into antique dealing about 40 years ago. And I met him. He used to come to Essex all the time. He's a terrific guy. And I want to see what's in the sale, because I guess he's closed his shop. He's a bit older than I am. And he had a beautiful shop in Rhode Island for a long time. And he had impeccable taste. He had the most amazing taste for interesting objects. So I want to see what he's got left. It may be stuff that isn't all that interesting, and it may be some great stuff. So we're going to take a look at that when it pops up on the New England Auctions site, because you might see something that he had some of the best quirky, cool stuff you've ever seen. And he used to buy from everybody. He was a very good buyer and a very charming guy. He's still around. But I guess he's retiring. Anyway, that's just a side note. Anyway, thanks for watching, and it's good to be home. And we got a lot sort of written out. I was making a list up the other day and did some thinking about what we want to do when we get home in the coming weeks. I've got some stuff to get caught up on, but there's a couple of auctions I'm going to do preview videos on in the next probably the next 4 days. So stay tuned for those, and then we're going to go back out on the road. So we're trying to get things out of the way now so we can go do that. And I'm hoping for some better weather. So anyway, thanks for watching, and thank you for your Patreon subscriptions, and thank you for your patience while I was away. It was very much appreciated. I feel very good and feel quite recharged. Okay, thanks again. See you soon. Bye-bye.